Hello, everybody, and welcome to Feminism and Queer Studies. So this course will examine the history and dialogue between feminist theory and queer theory. And the purpose is that one is to get the understanding of this history because both queer theory and feminist theory, queer scholarship, feminist scholarship, queer activism, feminist activism has been engaging with each other for over 20 years. Actually, you know what? Over 30 years. And it's also really important to look at the historical roots of queer theory as it has so much to do with the historical roots of feminism. Queer theory kind of evolved a lot from feminist thinking and so forth. As well as, not only is queer theory, the history of it lies in feminism, feminist scholarship has been heavily influenced by the work of queer theorists, queer scholarships, and queer activists. So much so that you cannot do feminist research today without engaging with queer theory to certain degrees, but you still have to engage with it. A lot of the stuff that feminists are writing about today, particularly looking at intersectionalities of race, sex, and gender, challenging norms, all of those things, very fundamental pieces within feminist research and scholarship and even activism, is heavily influenced by queer theorists, queer scholars, and so forth. So pretty much that's to say that a lot of feminist scholarship is queer scholarship. So a bit about me. You probably can tell from the background noise that I am recording this from my apartment in Fresno. But my name is Dr. Kat Faubert. My email, and this is really important, please email me at this address, not my IPFW one, only because I won't check it as much as my primary email address, which is katherinefaubert@mail.fresnostate.edu. I am an assistant professor at Fresno State in the Women's Studies program. I also am developing the LGBTQ studies minor here at Fresno State, and I teach a lot of LGBTQ studies classes. Just a little bit more background on me. So my degree is in women's studies with a focus on queer studies, and my work has primarily been around sexual and gender minority asylum seekers, so people who are coming here to the U.S. or into Canada seeking protection and asylum on the basis of homophobic, transphobic, sexist persecution. I also am a queer oral historian, so I've done a lot of work recording the histories of bars, of movements. Like I'm currently doing an oral history project here in Fresno with the history of gay bars here, which is pretty interesting. I also am doing work on access to health and services and so forth. And that very much combines both my scholarship and my activism. For the past 6 years or more, I worked for an organization called Rainbow Refugee, which is based in Canada. It's an amazing organization dedicated to assisting those seeking asylum on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, and HIV status. They do amazing work. They've helped hundreds of people. I feel really, really privileged and honored that I was able to be a part of that organization for so long. I'm currently right now here at Fresno on the board of Trans Emotion, which is this fabulous community support group for trans, gender nonconforming, gender non-binary individuals in the sort of Fresno Central Valley area of California. But I also have a really great history here with IPFW, which I guess would be no longer IPFW, but still. Last year, I was a visiting postdoc scholar in the Women's Studies department. I'm going to tell you that I absolutely adored and loved my time. It was such a privilege to be a part of such an amazing cohort of students. And then, of course, the amazing leadership of Dr. Janet Padilla, who is one of my role models. Also, a great thing is that I actually got one of my cats in Fort Wayne, Rue. So I adopted her as a little kitten. So I had amazing experiences at PFW, and I've got a very cute, adorable diva kitten. who you will probably hear in the background at times because she gets annoyed that I'm working. And so you might hear her, you might hear things crashing in the background because she's trying to make a ruckus to distract me. Okay. So moving on. So here's the thing. This is a summer class. I know, shocking. But it is an intensive summer class. We only have 6 weeks. And with that, then, we are limited both by it being an online class, it being a summer class, short time period, and so forth. That means then that, you know, we can't cover as much as I would like to cover in a course dedicated to queer theory and feminist theory. At the same time, we have to be careful on how far we go, how deep we go into the subjects that we do touch upon. So this class is very much designed with that in mind, the sort of limitations. So we will be exploring critical points or conversations between queer theory and feminist scholarship. But at the same time, knowing our limitations, we're not going to go too deep into queer theory or even into feminist theory. So for those of you who know who this person is, Foucault, we will not be reading Foucault, though I will be talking about him because obviously his work is very fundamental. It's a key cornerstone in queer theory as well as in feminist theory as well. It has had such an impact. But we won't be reading Foucault directly. It's just too dense, and I don't think it's going to be productive for a summer class. Also, Judith Butler. We will be spending the week on performativity, gender performance, and so forth, and bodies, and etc. Key Judith Butler's critiques and arguments, but we are actually not going to read directly her text. We're going to be reading texts that draw upon her theories, only because it is very dense reading material, and I think too dense for an online summer class. So what I want you to get from this, knowing our limitations, is that I do want you to have a feel of the overview of queer theory and studies, understanding the relationship, the sometimes tense relationship, difficult relationship between feminism and queer studies, as well as, vice versa, and they're sort of intertwining conversations that they have with each other. As well as, I do want you to have some practical experience in applying some queer theory, some feminist theory around sex, gender, and sexuality. So the assignments are really designed for you to try to not only learn, but to apply. So this class is a bit of a challenge and it's a bit of a balance, knowing the limitations that we have as it being a summer class, being online, and so forth. So those of you who are women's studies students or have taken women's studies classes here at IPFW who are also, I'm going to assume, at least familiar or even well-versed in feminist thought and scholarship, a little bit, particularly this week, will probably be familiar, but hopefully not repetitive. We will be focusing more on the queer side of feminism, sort of talking about how feminism has engaged with queer theory. So that means that we will, for this week, cover a bit about histories of feminism and so forth, and, a little bit of foundational work. But we're not going to go too far into that, and instead we're going to switch mostly into talking about queer theory and feminism together. Those of you who might be familiar with some queer theory or literature, you might have had them in your women's studies classes or in your other classes. Hopefully this class will give you a chance to explore it more and apply it to different contexts. We have a lot of projects that, you get to apply queer theory in different ways. But also knowing, again, that this is a summer class, so we will have limitations in regards to how deep we can go into the literature. And then for all of you who are, this is your first women's studies class that you've ever taken, you're not familiar with feminism, you're like, Foucault what? And you don't know what queer theory is, do not stress, okay? I gotcha. You do not have to be an expert on these things. You do not have to come in knowing to do well in this class. So, with all those disclaimers being said, let's get into the structure of this course. Let's get information, Beyonce. So, this class, as you know, runs from May 14th to June 22nd. How I've designed this class, I've broken it up every week into two sections, Part A and Part B. Both sections are required for the class discussion and the weekly writing assignments. We only have technically one assigned book that you need to get, which is Queer Graphic History. You can obviously get it from the bookstore, but it is also available online on Amazon. In addition to this, because this is really the Queer Graphic History is a very great book in the sense that it gives you sort of key definitions and so forth, but it doesn't really go too far in depth. We will be supplementing this text with Blackboard readings, as well as this YouTube account, which I'm going to go further in depth with the readings and the discussion for the week, as well as I'm going to be streaming movies and so forth. So it's a combination of both this book and the Blackboard readings, and then my lovely presentations. So before we get into the assignments, I want to talk about the house rules for this class. First and foremost is tolerance and respect. This course will cover controversial issues that require respectful and thoughtful discussion. It is vital that your fellow students and myself be treated respectfully at all times and in all interactions. Any speech or behavior that shows disrespect or intolerance towards others in class is unacceptable. As college students, you will be expected to participate in class discussions in which you demonstrate maturity, civility, and open-mindedness with respect to our wonderful diversity of this class, including differences in educational and economic backgrounds, age, race, sexuality, ability, politics, religious and gender identity, etc. Remember that one can disagree without being disagreeable. And in fact, I highly encourage disagreements. I don't expect you to agree with every argument that we read, or even arguments by your classmates. I think it's really important that disagreements happen. And since we're looking at a class which looks at feminism and queer theory, there's a lot of, disagreements between them. So with that being said, it is totally fine to disagree, to talk about your disagreements, to critique and so forth, but do it respectfully. Do it with tolerance and mutual respect for the person who you might be disagreeing with, or the literature that you might disagree with, or so forth. Very important, language and terminology. It is important to recognize the diverse and changing language around around identity in general. For example, I use the word trans instead of transgender as a way for me to acknowledge the wide diversity and experiences of gender variant and gender nonconforming individuals. But although I may use the word trans, this should not be seen as being the only way or the correct way to identify just the amazing diversity of those in the gender spectrum, in the transgender community, and so forth. It is very important in this class to respect terminology, pronouns, and any other identifying classification a person uses, and to use them in reference to that person. As somebody who teaches LGBTQ studies, queer theory, etc., I am the first to tell anyone that I learn a lot every semester from my students, because many of them are up to date on what's being used or what's being talked about, and a lot of my information and a lot of the ways that I grow as a person is by listening to my students. And so I'm not going to be offended if I get corrected, because how do I know, right? So that being said, I'm learning too, and I am not an expert, but I do want to emphasize that you need to respect a person's terminology, and as well as their identity and their pronouns and so forth, whether you may not fully understand them or not. And that goes into names and pronouns. So students in this class should be referred to by the name they prefer and the pronoun that they would like to be, that corresponds to their gender identity and how they would be addressed by. Please inform me of your name or pronouns not reflected by the record on Blackboard early in the semester so that I can make appropriate changes. Now, we are limited on Blackboard. I do not have the authority to technically change your name on Blackboard, but I can make sure that in discussions that all of us in this class know how to, when we do responses to you or in my email discussions with you or whatever, that I refer to you by the name that you want and the pronoun that you want. Confidentiality. So during this online class discussion, students may bring up matters of a personal nature involving their own life experiences. The stuff that we're going to be talking about, gender, race, sexuality, these are personal matters, right? And especially when we start talking about oppression based on gender, race, and sexuality and so forth. So I really encourage everyone to respect a person telling their story because that takes a lot. And to encourage and to observe confidentiality. So please do not share what you've read or anything outside of the classroom. And to respect that a person took a chance to share their truth and, honor that. As I said before, and which I will say again, please contact me. I'm very enthusiastic about this course. This is a subject that I love talking about, teaching about. Never refrain from contacting me about any questions related to this class. Again, the email that I really want you to use is catherinefaubert@mail.fresnostate.edu. It's the best way to contact me, and I will make every effort to respond to you as promptly as possible. I am asking to give me 24 hours to respond, and also remember that I live in California, so we do have a bit of a time delay. And then lastly, keep me in the know. Life is complicated and stressful. If you're struggling with keeping up with the readings or assignments, let me know. I will work with you. If other issues are inhibiting you from successfully participating in the class, let me know. I am a resource. All I'm asking is that please don't drop off or fade away. Don't feel like, oh God, I didn't turn in that assignment, so now I'm embarrassed and now I don't want to talk to her about it. Let me know as soon as possible about what's going on, and I will work with you about making sure that you complete this course successfully. Just don't wait till the end of the semester to tell me that something's up, because I'm limited in what I can do. Okay, so let's get into the assignments for this course. So the points, the grades is divided in half between both discussion boards and short writing assignments. We have 5 discussion boards that will be graded, and how it's broken up is that it's 10 points a week, 5 points for your posting, which is like the initial posting, and then 2.5 points equaling 5 points for responding to your classmates' post. In addition to the discussion boards, we will have every week a short writing assignment, which is around 2 to 3 pages, and I'll talk about it in a little bit. And those again are worth 10 points each. So for the discussion board, each week we'll have a discussion forum with a series of questions. The discussion questions will be made available every Sunday by 11:59 p.m. For the following week. And, for the initial post, your posting, I'm expecting around 500 to 750 words and about 250 words at least for each response. You can obviously go over. You will never get punished in this class for going over, but you have to hit that at least threshold to make the points. So for your initial post, the one that you post first, where you're responding to the questions, you need to post by that Thursdays. And then your responses are due by Sunday. Failure to post will be that you don't get any points for that. And again, since each discussion is worth 10 points, these are a lot of points and they add up to, half of your grade. So be aware of this and make sure that you keep up. So probably you were doing the math. So this week's discussion post is not graded. But I am really encouraging all of you to post on this one because I'm just asking questions about who you are, what's your major, just learning about you. It will be very, very super, super duper helpful for me to learn about you. Also knowing, how much you are familiar with queer theory, if you are, feminist theory, and so forth. So even though this week is not graded, I really would appreciate it if you did post this week. Writing assignments. Okay, so we do not have a midterm in this class. We do not have a final exam in this class. Again, the class's grades is divided up in 50 points for the discussions and 50 points for the total of all the writing assignments. So there will be a total of 5 short writing assignments. Each one is worth 10 points. And it's about 2 to 3 pages full, all the way down, not including a works cited page. And in your writings, you will be required to include the required readings for that week into it. You can use either APA or MLA. I don't really care on that. And I'm talking about just in-text citations and works cited. I'm not requiring any other sort of formatting around APA or MLA, just referencing the citations. And you can use either one, whatever one that you're more comfortable with. Just be consistent. That's all I ask. Now, detailed instructions for each assignment will be posted under the syllabus and instructions tab on Blackboard. So please make sure that you check it out. So we have, again, 5 writing assignments, and hopefully it will not be made up with your tears. The first one that will be due is on heteronormativity and cisnormativity photo voice. And detailed instructions are already up on Blackboard, so please check it out. I will also be posting next week a bit explaining the assignment more, so don't worry about that yet. But these are the due dates. They're also reflected, of course, on the syllabus, but also on the Blackboard under the course modules. So please review the syllabus, but also, for you to understand like the course schedule, what we're reading, what we're doing, and so forth, you can also check under the course module tab, where you will find the class readings, the Blackboard readings, as well as these lectures, as well as optional readings, which I post, which are not required. You do not have to do these readings for this class. They're just sort of additional readings if you want to, or additional videos or whatever. As well as, each module lists the schedule, so you can follow it that way in addition to the syllabus. So for week 1, we are purposely being light in regards to assignments. There are no assignments or discussion boards in regards to like being graded are due this week. Though I am asking you to please post on the discussion board this week just so I can learn about you. But there are going to be required readings as well as lectures. So for this week, I want you to first read before Thursday, Marinucci, Feminism Reexamined and Reconsidered, and then the pages in your queer graphic history book. And then part B, read this before Sunday, Eliot's Feminist Embattlement on the Fields of Trans, and Marinucci's Notes Towards a Queer Feminism. I will be posting lectures throughout the week, so you'll have ones that will complement the readings. But that's all I really want you to do this week is to please post onto the discussion board information about yourself. But then just to do the readings, watch the lectures, and then we're going to kind of go more full and force the next week around assignments and so forth. But again, if you have any questions about this class, issues around accessibility of the readings, especially if you can't open them up or whatever, let me know as soon as possible. Best way again is to email me at catherinefaubert@mail.fresnostate.edu. Yeah. So again, I look really forward to working with you in this class. I'm super excited about this class, and yeah, I think it's going to be a really good semester.